Hello everyone and welcome back to another mini concept, this time about the limit laws. And for this video, I'm not going to go in depth anymore about this topic. This video is actually a really quick summary of everything about limits. And or not limits, rather limit laws. And an in-depth video really would be the other in-depth videos we have on how to solve limits. So this might be a bit long, but we're trying to avoid unnecessary um, review time being taken away from you guys just for something as simple as limit laws. Now these aren't really that difficult. So starting with the first law, we have the limit of an identity. An identity function is basically when f of x is equal to x. Now, when we're dealing with something like this, for example, the limit as x approaches a certain number of the function x, that's going to be equal to a, or the value that we're approaching. This is our limit of an identity. So if we're, for example, getting the limit as x approaches 2 of x, then the limit is 2. Now, that's pretty simple. Same thing goes for the limit of a constant. So the limit as x approaches, let's say, a of a constant, instead of it being the value we're approaching, it's just going to be equal to the constant itself. We cannot change it. Now, for the third one, the sum and difference of limits. So let's say that we're supposed to add limits together. The limit of as x approaches a of f of x plus g of x, for example. This is our limit. This is also equal to the limit as x approaches a of f of x plus the limit as x approaches a of g of x. So we're essentially distributing our limit statement. Now, how about constant multiple of a limit? If, let's say, we're asked to get the limit of 3x as x approaches a, basically this will also be equal to 3 times the limit as x approaches a of x. Oh, let me fix my a there, of x. So this is a simplification of how to solve for that limit. Next, how about the product of limits? Now, again, the product of limits is pretty straightforward. Basically, we're just going to be getting the in a function, for example, where it's x cubed, I don't know, x cubed, and the other one is x squared, where we multiply these together. The limit as x approaches a of this would be equal to the limit as x approaches a of x cubed times the limit as x approaches a of x squared. Same thing with the quotient rule. So for quotient, it's basically going to be the limit as x approaches a, for example, of x cubed over x squared. This is equal to the limit of x cubed as x approaches a over the limit of x squared as x approaches a. Now, the next two rules, I think, are the last ones. We have the power of a limit, which is essentially just, for example, the limit of, let's use this one, the limit as x approaches x cubed, the limit of x cubed as x approaches a over the limit of x squared as x approaches a. This can also be written as the limit of x as x approaches a cubed over the limit of x as x approaches a squared. And the same thing goes for the roots. This is basically just going to be the same, where our function, for example, could be square root of x. Basically, the limit as x approaches a of the square root of x is equal to the square root of the limit as x approaches a of x. So that's the list of all of the limit laws, and these are their names. Oh, there's a typo here, but pretty much they're straightforward. They're just questions in exams, for example, that ask you what limit law was invoked and etc. But essentially, this is all uh, it's a more analytical way of approaching limits. Sometimes limits, such as in that of the limits at infinity, they require understanding of these limit laws, and other times they just come naturally. They also obey algebra. So yeah, understanding these doesn't hurt. Not understanding this also doesn't hurt, as long as you understand how algebra and limits work. However, for some exams, maybe in particular your school added this to their curriculum, they will actually ask you to use limit laws in solving. So let that be your, I guess, guide on what to study regarding limits. So thank you everyone. And this minute concept was a bit long, it's 6 minutes, but I hope that the list of our rules is enough for you guys so that we don't have to do an in-depth video about this anymore. So thank you everyone, and I hope you guys learned something from this video on limit laws.